Okay, while we're getting connected, good evening or good afternoon and welcome to this special called board meeting of the Northside Board of Trustees. Before calling this meeting to order, the board would like to take just a moment to briefly review some of the rules for conducting our meeting. The order of business for this meeting is set out in the agenda. The purpose of our meeting is to conduct board business, and for that reason, it is held in public. It is not a public forum, however, and we do provide the opportunity for audience participation. If there is anyone who would like to address the board during the agenda item, we ask that you please complete a sign-in sheet located at the entrance to the room, to this room. This is so we don't overlook anyone who would like to speak to the board. We will review the rules for addressing the board later in the meeting. Is there anyone here who would like to sign up for an agenda item and has not done so? Okay, the meeting will then officially be called to order. I'm going to go ahead and lead us in the invocation and the pledges of allegiance. Excuse me. Thank you, God, for this team of 8 and all that are here to support all our students and families, staff and families during this challenging time. Please help us see the opportunities, support, and positivity during this time. We ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, and indivisible. All right, we will move down the agenda items to, should have it memorized, agenda item 16, Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell, and to all of the members for coming to an unusual time and an unusual meeting. Really appreciate your efforts at doing this on such short notice. You are all well aware of the situation at a state and a national level. I thought I would give you today's update that I've typically been texting you late in the day, partly because it will save me a long text message this afternoon, as a way to kind of a precursor to the resolution we'll ask you to consider in this meeting. So on a positive note, we did begin food delivery today at 11 middle school sites. We delivered about 13,500 meals in a period of roughly 15 minutes. It is clear that the demand is quite high. We are, and some of the staff that you would normally see in here who aren't in here are working with the food bank to pilot, working with them at some of our sites as well. Due to the shortage of non-perishable products, on Monday of next week we will continue service, but it will be hot meal service at least those sites, if not some additional ones. We're still testing the data that we got from today and deciding how many sites ultimately we'll feed at. We feel confident that we can provide meals for an extended period of time. We have roughly $2.5 million worth of food in our warehouses and feel good about that. We are working hard with the Texas Department of Agriculture and USDA to get schools and other organizations like the food bank the appropriate waivers that would allow more flexibility in how we feed and who we feed. So far, those organizations, at least at the federal level, have been reluctant. And so we're working with some elected officials to help us with that. So that is indeed good news that we're trying to meet what is obviously pretty healthy demand. 13,500 this morning. That'll be replicated this afternoon. 27,000 today. And again tomorrow and the following day. And I think Renee told me we think we can ramp that number up a little bit in the next couple of days.
To 6,000 tomorrow.
An additional 6,000.
And on Friday.
Yeah. So good work going on there. We are starting to bleed down the number of people at both campuses and at our central office sites and allowing/directing them to work from home. We are also thinking through what it might look like if we had to work remotely entirely as a system, and how we would accomplish that. We have been working and would like to offer, after this meeting, a training for the board on WebEx, which is just a way to do remote meetings, so that we can, in case we need to go to remote meetings for this body, both for committees as well as for full board meetings, that we have that option available to us soon. I think it would be prudent for us to be ready to do that pretty quickly. As we speak, principals are being trained in our online instructional delivery to help them support and monitor that. We've had principals over being trained in relatively small groups all day on that service. Tomorrow, we will remotely, via webinar, train teachers in Google Classroom and in online pedagogy, and ask that they be ready to begin delivery on Monday the 23rd, obviously this coming Monday. Also tomorrow, Lori and her team are ready to stand up delivery of devices and Wi-Fi access points to the degree we've been able to acquire them at a number of sites, all of our Title I schools, and then some cluster sites outside of that to include high schools and middle schools. So that it will begin tomorrow, and we hope by late this week, early next week, we'll have been able to pretty much get those out to those who need them. Lori started early before spring break, when this was just kind of a glimmer of a possibility, and she and senior staff all agreed that we needed to go ahead and start acquiring those devices, and goodness we did, because that, like non-perishable food items, are pretty hard to get these days. And so we're glad to be able to offer that availability to our families. We are tracking all of our expenditures that are occurring because of the situation and trying to code them. What we've learned from other parts of our state that have experienced disaster in recent years is that reimbursements are hard to come by, and they're even harder to come by if you don't pretty carefully track how you're spending those dollars and where you're spending those dollars. So we're making every effort through both principals as well as directors and above to track those expenditures. Other than today, because we're in this meeting, I do a call every day with state officials every afternoon, and then a call with the Bexar County group of superintendents about every third day or as needed, just so that we're on the same page. We're trying to track information together rather than school system by school system. So there's a update for today. Assuming you're okay with it, I'll continue to send you a daily update as we go forward in time. It sure seems like the situation changes on a pretty regular basis. So there's an update for today. The reason that we're here is to ask the board to consider a resolution that Paige and I have worked together on for a while now. Many districts across the state and the nation have passed similar resolutions of late. So as I've said to you and trying to send you drafts along the way, basically what the document does is it makes exception to certain local policies that deal with really four main areas. How we pay employees, whether they be working or not working. How we deal with leave, because we think that there will be some pretty unusual circumstances out of this, dealing with how we record and deal with leave. There's an element in there that, should it become necessary, because no staff or virtually no staff are working on site, there are provisions that would allow in a crisis an exception to the Public Information Act, and that's a part of the resolution. That's not an issue today, but just trying to look forward out into the future. And I'm missing a major area page.
Purchasing.
Yes, thank you, sorry. The resolution would also authorize me to do purchasing related to the crisis that's outside of the current limits. For instance, the $50,000 limit that we have currently now. We've already seen an example like that when we were looking to acquire wireless access points. There will be others that come along, typically they're going to be along the lines of the two priorities of feeding kids and instructing kids. And obviously, the wireless access point falls into the latter. So there will be, I think, examples of that as we go forward. So to summarize the resolution, those are really the four main points. Paying folks, whether they're working or not working, to include, sub-bullet, differential pay if we got to the point where, for instance, the city was more or less locked down, but we still thought, for example, police needed to be patrolling our buildings, protecting our assets. This would authorize me to pay them more than their normal rate if we did that. So that up to time and a half. So that it authorizes that. It authorizes the purchasing exception. It authorizes staff and I to deal with leave situations that inevitably are going to occur. And then finally, this provision around the Public Information Act. So those are the four main issues that are examined in the resolution. Be happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Chumley?
First, Brian, I want to thank you for what you have been doing. I always brag about and talk about you, but truly, I feel so grateful that you are a superintendent
Thank you.
Here.
right now. Because I can't imagine, could you imagine being a district needing to pass this and not having that trust in your superintendent to give this to him? Anyway, so on to this. I just want to understand, so on number 2, the example was like if we wanted to have the police still checking and guarding our assets, then Brian, where, and this may not be where that falls into it, but where does it fall into for our employees, like our bus drivers, our custodians, our cafeteria workers will be working, because I'm assuming we're using our food service,
Correct. As of now, that's correct.
right? So what about that group of employees?
That falls into provision number 1. And passage of this resolution would allow me to communicate tomorrow that all employees will be paid regardless of working or not working. That's what provision number 1 contemplates.
Okay.
Very similar to what you've done on much shorter periods of time for an ICE day or something along those lines.
Well, and I'm assuming that, because everything is in flux, that, depending upon how long this lasts, that there will be discussions too. Our Indian budget fund is only so much, but for now, though, we are able to continue, and that number 1 allows you to do that.
It does in both the short and intermediate term. Dr. Harrell and Mr. Medina have signed, and I will sign, an attestation that basically says we will provide instructional support for our students during this period of time. As soon as that is signed by the 3 of us, permanent school funding will flow for the remainder of the school year. So we know we have the dollars to pay these folks and to do these other things that we would normally do if school was operating. And that, again, number 1, that's true
is
of
where
both
that
the
allows.
exempt and the non-exempt staffing.
Well, and I think number 2 is perfect with what you're talking about, because we do need to protect, and who knows what the future's going to bring on some of this as well.
And that's what we're trying to do is, project out, worst case scenario, what authority would need to be granted to me so that things could happen quickly.
Absolutely. And then just on number 4, Brian, what do we do to make sure that we have consistency through our schools in relation to leave. So are you going to come up with, I mean, I'm sure you don't have all of it now, but just an idea of, what this should look like for our administrators, or, because I could see where that could cause some concern for our staff if we don't have the consistency between our administrators on how they're handling the leave on this.
Right, yeah, I think, I would love to be able to tell you when, but, at some point, Patty and senior staff and I'll sit down and say, okay, this is how we're going to handle leave for this period of closure as it applies to groups of employees. Because, as you know, today, at this moment, we're trying to treat groups of employees the same, and so we would then treat their leave the same. So one of the things, as an example, one of the things we've talked about is there's, in certain situations with teachers, they've gone in and entered leave for these, what day is this? Wednesday? 3 days that we've been back at school. This allows us to go in and zero that out and essentially put that leave back in their bank as a group of employees, right? So what 4 contemplates is looking at employee groups and treating them as a group to the degree we can
Right.
with their leave to achieve fairness and equity and all those things.
And then just individual, if there's something that is an individual piece, because
Well,
you're going to have some.
You're always going to have those.
Some
and
of
we'll,
those
and we've
kinds
got
of-
some of those going now, and Patty and her people, that's what they do. And it'll take us months to untangle all of that. But we'll handle the big chunks first. How do we work with groups of employees?
So in reference to that, and I know that you had said that it's that the CTE and the elective teachers, that's is something that we're going to be working on as soon as possible to get them trained to do the online as well. So when that happens, so they just continue to be paid until that training takes place, and that may not be tomorrow, but
May not be.
but it will come as quickly as we can. And so then we're working in, so just, and I don't know where the appropriateness is of this, but, one of my son's schools is saying that they're not going to take attendance in relation to students' online instruction. And I know that you've got something in here that one of these talks about that piece as well, leaving all the rest of that, Brian. So do we have any idea yet how we're handling that? And so if you have teachers that are teaching and other teachers, because they haven't been trained yet, aren't, everybody's still getting paid. And then what about if you have classes that there just really is not a way to teach them online?
Yeah, I don't know that I have all the answers to that. I think, we're trying to handle the big chunks first, right?
Okay.
So core area instruction, for obvious reasons, we
Right.
try to handle that first. What we are doing tomorrow is training all teachers, 100% of the teachers, in the Google Classroom and in online pedagogy. What we don't yet have is rich online resources, for example, for every CTE course. So we've got pretty good resources built out for the core. We've got pretty good resources built out for international language, but obviously that leaves us with others that have work to do. And so while those teachers will have training and they'll be able to create an environment to communicate with kids, they're going to be for a little while kind of on their own with regard to how they handle it. And then over time, we'll help them with resources like we have already with the core. Core teachers are going to have this rich bank of resources tomorrow to draw from that our folks have curated and have been curating for years. That's just not as true in those places where you've only got 3 of those classes in the entire district, right? So we're trying to work our way down the funnel, help the biggest chunks of kids, and then work our way down. It's going to take some time.
Is there, and I'm sure this is in their provision, so let's say that there's online classes that our curriculum can be purchased for, say, an electrical, a plumbing, a welding, that we don't currently have. Is there provisions in here where we will those teachers could reach out to get those,
It's-
to purchase. That's in here.
It's the reason that the purchasing piece is in here, because
Okay.
if that were to happen and it were to cost more than $50,000, instead of waiting on a board meeting, I could just say, go forward, do it.
Okay, and then I know that there's some universities that have online CTE type classes that, who would you want them to reach out to if they want to provide assistance?
Debbie Schaefer,
Debbie Schaefer. Okay.
for sure.
Well, thank you again for everything that you're doing. Thanks. That was it,
Thank you,
Carol.
Ms. Chumley. Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Sorry, I did hit the wrong button. Yeah, no, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Carol. Dr. Woods, I want to just make a couple of comments, and I wanted to kind of just touch on what Melissa said. You're doing an excellent job, and thank you for your leadership. One of the things that I heard most, and it's a compliment to you, was your leadership and how you were very empathetic as to the cause of what's going on right now, and that your decisions have been decisive, and it was very clear, and everybody could understand what was expected of them. So thank you for that. And you know, you're the best person for this right now. We appreciate you, and I wanted to thank you personally for that. Other than that, that was it.
Thank you.
I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Ms. Reed?
I sort of lost track of what I was thinking about, but definitely, we certainly think you are doing a great job under a lot of stressful circumstances, and as it changes minute to minute sometimes. So, and you've been doing a good job of letting us know what's going on, and that's really important because I have people all the time asking me, "What are you doing about this as a school district?" Well, I'm not doing anything, but but we need to know, and it's just that piece of needing to know that we need to make sure continues to happen. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Mr. Blunt?
I guess I'll pass on my thanks also. But I did have just one detailed question, and just one comment. I should thought about before, on provision number 3, the authority to alter, and I'm for it, but that authority may potentially go looking at things maybe beyond the date that's specified for the endpoint if necessary out of the emergency. Okay, that's good.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. That's
I think there's, you know, obviously don't want to be morbid, but
Yeah.
I think all of these may need to be extended. Wood and I went back and forth. I was uncomfortable having it be indefinite, but it is
Yeah.
absolutely possible, if not likely at this point, that some or all of these provisions will need to be extended by the board
Yeah.
sometime next month.
Yeah, and that was going to be my comment. You know, not necessarily for the record, but this, yeah, as you know, it's going to be going on for a pretty long time. So
I think we all feel
Prepared
like
for now,
we're in for the long haul here. Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. Ms. Freeman?
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. I too. Thank you, Dr. Woods. And, you know, not only have you done so much for this district and our staff and our students, but I know that you're looked upon from other people in the state, and they call upon you. And you've led conversations in that regard, so thank you for your leadership there. I have a question about ADA. So what happens? What ADA do they use? Where are those funds coming from? How much do we get reimbursed?
My best understanding of this, and Renee can correct me if I step out, is that because again we have signed this attestation that says we're going to do our best to provide a continuation of instruction for Northside kids, that they're going to essentially look back over a period of time a year ago and use that ADA to flow permanent school fund dollars. And so that's my best understanding without, I'll admit, having actually read that, just conversations in these state level meetings, that's my best understanding of how the calculation is going to be made. Anything that would disagree with that?
No, I think that when the dust settles, we'll find out from TEA how they're going to hold districts harmless for any kind of reduction in ADA because of this. Or they may simply just say, we'll take the ADA that you would have earned up until a certain date, truncate the year.
Yeah, and prorate out, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I
Hopefully
think
the
we're not
latter.
exactly sure of the calculation, but we
TEA
feel,
TEA doesn't know either.
we feel good that we're going to be held harmless at least through the end of the school year,
Thank you.
which is what makes us confident that we're under provision one, that we can continue to pay folks.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Mr. Medina.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. Just real quickly again, we do want to recognize you, Dr. Woods, for your leadership by leading by example, the nonstop, the resiliency that you have to lead our community, Northside ISD as well. We also want to, thank our teachers for their patience, our community members for their patience, our students to be willing, and it is a learning. We're all learning through this. It is once in a lifetime, I hope, going through this uncharted territory. But again, your role model, your perseverance, and I think that's all we ask. And thank you for doing all that you can for us and communicating with us. Thank you.
Y'all know we've got a great team of staff who's been working 7 days a week on this for a while now. So that I appreciate, but it's no way we'd be here this well organized if it were me. We got a lot of smart people working on this.
Okay, anybody else? We've all gone around. Anything else to add? We just widen the net for thanks, and God love our kids. They're experiencing something that I don't think any of us would have ever imagined. And boy, are they being troopers. And compliments to, again, Joseph said it, but so many teachers have already been calling and writing and sending lessons already to kids and doing so many things, helping out with lunches. And it really is a kind of a hashtag, we can do this, together. And so, again, I thank the board. All the conversations, all the emails have been so positive, and what more can we do? So thanks to y'all as well. And hopefully we'll move forward and do the most important thing for today.
We've got an opportunity to make a challenging situation great. So that's our goal, is to make
Might I
it the
make
very
one
best we
more
can.
comment?
Sure, Ms. Reed.
I think I sent to Dr. Woods, I don't know whether I sent it to you, Carol, also, but the principal at Kermit Elementary School sends out a newsletter, and she sends it in three languages, and then also asks people to serve, those people who don't have their language there, make sure that you get a translation. And in her letter this week, she has given the focus for what parents should be doing with their kids at home and keeping them on a schedule. So, and these are the things that you could do. I was just really very, very impressed by what she sent out to her nation of parents and students, and I'm hopeful that some of the others are doing likewise. So it's just amazing what our teachers and principals and staff are doing, and we all need to be aware of that.
And a lot of that without any training, or anything else. Everybody's just doing the best they can.
They are. They are. And then, Barry, just real quick, I was going to add to that, because I had some questions about languages, and the Google Translator is up and running wonderfully, and it comes in lots of languages. So all that communicate from Northside, someone said, how are our kids going to see this when it's coming up in English? Well, you hit the Google Translator and you search for your language, and boom, then everything comes up in the home language. So again, that's a good thing to kind of market, I think, and appreciate that as well. So is any other discussion?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
I just have one
Ms.
question
Shumlin.
that I was thinking about. My neighbor, I just found out, is actually a counselor in communities in school, and never knew that. But Brian, how does that work on like those types of services that we provide that aren't necessarily a Northside employee? But then also too, what about the counseling piece? And then I'm thinking, what about high school, seniors that are getting ready for graduation and college and
We
all
don't have
of
answers to those questions.
that? Okay.
Those are great questions.
Yeah, but I didn't know what we did for students that may actively be counseling in our, with our counselors. where we're providing those types of services.
Yeah, we don't have, one of the questions that I worry about the most long-term is what do we do about credits and graduation and grade advancement and all those things? And we don't have answers to that just yet. We're hoping to get the online system robust enough where we can have an answer to that question, but that and about 1,000 other things are real worries.
Some of those, Brian, we may just not have answers to until all of this is ended and over.
It's possible. Yeah, we're just trying to handle the big rocks right now.
I'm sorry, I know that you're thinking about all those things, but it's just these things come up, and it's like Katie was saying, you get asked about it, particularly when it's someone who's saying, all my work is with Northside, but now communities and school, I'm not going into schools, and I don't think I'm going to get paid, and, I didn't know how to respond to any of that.
Yeah, I can't answer what their situation is with regard to pay.
No, but
Yeah,
I was
'cause
just,
I'll-
but I was just thinking about the services they provide, because we really do think they provide good services.
No doubt, no
So-
question.
I don't know.
And
No
I do
question.
think, moving towards the resolution, one of the good things about this is I have had a handful of close colleagues in the district reach out, and one's husband furloughed, someone else. I mean, their jobs are intact, and we are doing a great thing for our employees
Yes.
that
Their
will.
families, right?
Yeah, and their families in light of the way other people are doing some business. So this is such a good thing to take care of the people part first. And I think the credits will come next, and we'll have an answer when it's time.
But we've
But
got
good
some bus
point.
drivers that are really just
Yeah.
concerned because this is their
This is
bread and
it.
butter.
Yeah.
This
After-school
will help
care.
us answer that.
Yep.
After-school care.
And Amazon is hiring. Grubhub is
So
hiring.
is HEB.
Is hiring. So,
Oh, yeah, if you go by there, you'll see all these kids restocking shelves even during the day.
At this point, Dr. Harrell, we
Okay.
recommend approval of resolution.
thank you. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I
A
was
loud
gonna-
and proud motion. Mr.
Yeah,
Blunt.
I'll move approval for the COVID-19 emergency district disclosure actions as discussed, including adoption of the resolution addressing personnel and purchasing issues.
There's been a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Any question? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Yay. And I think that will conclude, let me go back to the agenda that I've written all
Open
over.
session.
Yeah.
Only if we need an
That's
executive
it
session.
for us today at 3:34.
Thank you.
Thank